We will come to Chapter 5, Offences and Penalties. That is Section 25 to 57 of the Act, which forms a very big part. First thing is, what is the penalty for non-standard weight and measure? Section 25. Before we come, there are many things. I know it is impossible to remember the number for everything. So for the important ones you remember, this is definitely an important one. This is a basic one which you should know. That is, the punishment is 25,000 rupees. That is the fine, and the imprisonment is, that is up to 6 months, which may extend. That means it can be 1 day, it can be 1 week, it can be 1 month, it can be maximum 6 months imprisonment. When anyone uses or keeps any weight or measure or makes use of any numeration which is not as per the standards under the Legal Metrology Act. So if you have in your possession any weight or measure which is not as per Act, it is quite a serious offense. Look at it. The 25,000 rupees fine and imprisonment. Who wants to go to jail just because you have a wrong weight or measure? Nobody wants to go, but that is the seriousness of the matter. The customer is king. The customer should not be cheated, and that is the reason why we have this penalty, and this is the first one. Penalty for alteration of the weight and measure. So that means, suppose you have a weight, okay? Let us say this is a weight and this is to measure the water or any liquid like this. Suppose this is 1 liter. Here you will make another layer and this will become vacuum. So you are saving 100 ml here. Here you are giving only 900 ml, but it is a criminal activity under the Legal Metrology Act. So for the fine is 50,000. That is for the first offense. For second and subsequent offense, again if you do the same mistake. So the Legal Metrology Act is telling, if you do once, we will tell, okay, you pay the fine. But if you do the same offense again, it will be minimum not less than 6 months imprisonment, which is up to 1 year, or it can be fine, imprisonment, or with both. So it's quite a serious thing. You need to be very, very careful. So nobody should tamper, alter any of the standard weight or measure, and if they do that, they will be punished. And if their important thing is, if they are deceiving the person, if they are trying to cheat the person, then they will not be spared. They have to pay the fine and also go to jail. Next penalty is for manufacture or sale of non-standard weights or measure. So we have a factory and they are doing something where it is not a standard weight and measure as per the Act. So here, whoever is running the factory, their punishment is up to 20,000, and for second time same mistake you do, up to 3 years. So this is also important. You need to remember for exam. As I told you, you cannot remember all the sections and all the provisions for the penalty. So wherever it is important, you remember. Other things you generally know what is the punishment. So you should know it is different for first time and the second and subsequent time. That is third, fourth, fifth time you do same mistake. Correct? Nobody will be quiet. The government will definitely not be quiet. Section 28, penalty for making any transaction, deal or contract which is not in contravention with the standards of weights or measures. So whoever it is, it could be any kind of deal, any kind of contract, any kind of transaction. If it is not as per the Act, for first offense it is 10,000, and for second offense it is a period which will extend to 1 year with fine or with both. So both the things are possible for you. You need to be very careful. You can even go to jail. Remember that even if you don't know what is the fine amount, it's okay, but you should know the headings of each of the sections. That means if you get a question, what are the things for which penalty can be imposed under Legal Metrology Act? What are the circumstances for which penalty can be imposed under Legal Metrology Act? So you should know the circumstances, and it is impossible to remember every number. I am not telling that, but wherever important you remember. Penalty for quoting or publishing non-standard units. If you are publishing any non-standard unit, first offense is 10,000, and for the second offense it may extend to 1 year or with fine or with imprisonment and fine. So this is again very important. Quoting of the penalty for quoting or publishing non-standard units. Next, penalty for transaction in contravention with standard weight or measure. So you don't have a standard weight or measure. So what happens? Let us have a look at it. First one is sell. If you deliver or cause delivered quantity or number that article or thing to the purchaser less than the quantity or number contracted or paid for. So you agreed to sell 1000 kgs, but you are giving 950 kgs. You will tell what only 50 kgs is the difference. But end of the day, you have agreed, you have signed a contract, and you have to be completely complying with the contract. If you don't do, then it is a reason for you to impose the penalty by the government. So government can impose penalty on you. Render service. So if you render service less than the service contracted for. If you buy, fraudulently receive or cause received any quantity or number that article thing in excess of the quantity or number contracted. So if you are buying also, if you are taking more than what you agreed, you are telling give me 100 kgs, but you are taking away 115 kgs. So that is also wrong. Not only when you sell, but even when you buy, you should be proper. Obtain service, when you take the service. So when render service, when you are giving service, obtain service, when you take the service. So if you are taking service excess of the service which you had agreed to pay for, that is also something which can be punished. What is the punishment? First offense 10,000. For second offense, same mistake again, imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year, or with fine and imprisonment. If you are very unlucky, both will come to you. Next, section 31 talks about penalty for non-production of documents. So when we have an inspection etc., the officer will ask, give us the document. If document is not given properly, 5,000 for first offense. For second and subsequent offense, we have imprisonment which may be up to 1 year, which may extend. That means it can be 1 day also minimum, or it can be maximum 1 year with fine. Penalty for failure to get the model approved. Section number 32. Whoever fails, omits or submits a model of any weight or measure for approval, and if he is not getting the approval, then he uses it. If he doesn't get approval, no problem. He doesn't get approval, but he is using it in the open market. That is an offense. That time, for first time it is 20,000. For second time, imprisonment which may extend to 1 year, and also with fine. So the kind of punishment is similar, but you should know what are the things for which punishment can be given under the Legal Metrology Act. Penalty for use of unverified weight. It is not verified by government. So you are using that, you are selling, you are distributing, you are delivering, you are transferring. It is not allowed. Because it is not allowed, for first offense, the fine will be not less than 2,000, but which is up to 10,000. Second offense is imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year and with fine as usual. So this is the thing. You cannot use which is not verified by government. Whatever weights you use, electronic weights, manual weights, or any other hybrid weights, you cannot use it without which is verified. It should be verified, only then you can use it. If it is unverified, you cannot use it. Penalty for sale or delivery of commodities etc. by non-standard weight or measure. If you sell or deliver commodities, so anybody who is selling or delivering any commodity or article, any commodity means it includes everything under the sun, any commodity or articles which is not as per the standard weight or measure, then for first offense 2,000, which may be up to 5,000, and for second offense we have 3 months minimum jail period, which is up to 1 year. So again in exam they might not ask how much duration and all, and you really don't have to remember, but you should know what are the kind of things where there can be penalty, and it is a serious offense. What are all the offenses you should know. So really don't worry about these numbers about what is the fine, but you should know when we can give the penalty, when the government can impose a penalty. Penalty for rendering service by non-standard weight measure. So same way for goods, we can apply for service. So service where other than weight measure or numeration, in terms of non-standard weight measure or number. So if you use that, again you will be having the penalty which is imposed by the government. Next is penalty for selling non-standard packages. If you are selling non-standard packages, where anything which is packed goods, or you are importing, selling, distributing, whatever it could be, or it could be even pre-packaged commodity which we already studied. For first offense it is up to 25,000, second offense up to the 50,000, and third offense onwards, third time onwards, it is 50,000 to 1 lakh and imprisonment up to 1 year. Now we have something called as government approved test center. So you need to test all your weights and measures before you sell it in the open market. So the penalty for contravention by government approved test center is under section 37. If a government approved test center contravenes provisions, that means any government approved center, like any private party, will take the license from government to be a test center. Okay, and if that particular authority, if that particular government approved test center is not doing their job properly, they will have 1 lakh as the penalty. Next, we studied about importer. That means you can import standards, weights and measure, but you have to register. If you are not registering, if you are doing your business by non-registration, and if you are an importer, then whoever imports any weights or measure without being registered, first offense is 25,000, second and other offenses, third, fourth, fifth time, it is imprisonment 6 months or with fine and imprisonment. Next we come to penalty for import of non-standard weight or measure. So again, if you are importing, first thing here we studied about if you are not registered, but here you may be registered but you are importing a non-standard weight. That means it is not in conformity, not according to Legal Metrology Act 2009. That time what happens? Again you have a fine. So again, please don't worry, there are too many things, and don't worry about the numbers, but please know when punishment can be given, when penalty can be given, what are the offenses you should know. Not really about the amount of the penalty, it is not important, that you can see anytime in the book, but for what you can fine you should know. Penalty for obstructing director, controller or legal metrology officer. So a legal metrology officer will go to the company and tell, I want to inspect your company. The company will say, no, you don't come, or the company will close the door, the company will avoid the person. That time the imprisonment is the first time offense itself, you are getting up to 2 years. For second time it may be up to 5 years. So if government officer comes to your office, please allow them inside and don't stop them from going ahead with the inspection. This is a more serious offense. Here everywhere they have given about the fine, correct? But when we look at the offense over here, directly it is imprisonment. That is the seriousness of the matter which you have to be aware. Next we come to section 41, penalty for giving false information or a false return. This is important for us to know. A false information or a false return is every year when you are going and giving the wrong data to the government. If you give the wrong data to government, it is a serious offense, that is penalty for giving false information or false returns to the government. Whoever gives any information to the director, controller or legal metrology officer which he may require or ask for in the course of his duty, which such person either knows or has reason to believe to be false, the first offense is 5,000, subsequent offense is imprisonment up to 6 months, that is fine or imprisonment, both can be given. So you should not give false information to the government. Now, same section 41 subsection 2, if the person submits a return, that is something like an annual return. So every year, even in companies, we file annual return under Companies Act. Same way, if an annual return is being given and that has wrong information, then the material particulars are false. So suppose there are 2 notices against you, you are in the annual return, you are telling there was no notice during the year. That is a wrong thing. You cannot give wrong information, and if you do that, the penalty is fine of 5,000 rupees and which may extend to 1 year imprisonment. So this is again a serious offense. Next we come to vexatious search, section 42. Director, controller or any other legal metrology officer, if he feels that there are no reasonable grounds for doing so, yet he searches or causes search at any house, searches any person, seizes any person, then even the government officer can be having imprisonment up to 1 year and fine which is up to 10,000 or with both. So don't think only the companies are facing, even the government officer. So government officer, they may be having some revenge against somebody and they may misuse the power. If they misuse the power, that time even they are subject to the punishment, and the punishment is imprisonment which may extend to 1 year. See, this is 100% theory. No government officer has gone to jail till today under Legal Metrology Act, but we need to know the law. Even they can be sent. If they do vexatious search, that is any search out of revenge or just to settle scores, if they don't have any preliminary evidence, simply for extracting money, for corruption, whatever it is, we call it vexatious search, where there is no proper reason, proper justification to go and search any factory or place. Penalty for verification in contravention of Act and rules. So for any verification in contravention of the Act or rules, then you will have the punishment for every offense which is up to 1 year or fine up to 10,000 or with both. So please understand, if the controller or any legal metrology officer willfully verifies or stamps any legal metrology measure in contravention of the provisions of the Act. So again, sometimes see, we need to understand corruption is a reality. So there could be some officer who is giving approval to some legal measure or a weight, and this is by taking money or by having some other benefit. If he is giving the approval without proper documentation, even that time there is a penalty. Section 44, penalty for counterfeiting of seals. So this is another kind of offense which is under the Legal Metrology Act. So what the section says, which is, I quote, whoever counterfeits any seal, sells or disposes of any counterfeit seal, possesses any counterfeit seal, or counterfeits or removes or tampers with the stamp, or affixes the stamp which is already given, or it is removed, then for that person the offense which is 6 months imprisonment which may go up to 1 year. For second and subsequent offense, it can be 6 months to 5 years as the penalty. Now we come to section 44 subsection 2. Anyone who obtains any seal that is unlawfully, that is without permission, or he uses such seal, or he represents the stamp that it is authorized by the Act and the government has given approval, then we again have imprisonment of 6 months to 1 year, and for second offense 6 months to 5 years. So you should make sure that we are not using the seal of the government or misusing it. If you do it, there is a penalty and even imprisonment under the Act. Further, section 44 subsection 3, anyone who has possession, that means if they have a seal with them which is not under the legal authority, government authority, it is a counterfeit, it is a fake seal, then again we have imprisonment 6 months to 1 year, and for second time 6 months to 5 years. Further in this section 44 subsection 4, please remember section 44, it is important for exam. Here, whoever sells or offers to sell any of the weights or measure which he knows it is not correct, which he knows it is a fake, which he knows it is not as per Legal Metrology Act, then again we have the imprisonment. So there is no fine at all, direct imprisonment. It's a serious offense. Now we come to section 45. If anybody is manufacturing of weight and measure without license, this is again very important for exam. You should know this very well. And you can quote this in any of the answer. Whoever is required to obtain license or who is manufacturing without a valid license, for first offense 20,000 rupees, for second time if they do the same mistake that time imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year, or with fine, or with imprisonment and fine. This is the kind of penalties which will be there. Same way we have penalty for repairing or selling of weights and measure without license. Again, it is the same kind of penalty, that is we have imprisonment which may extend to 1 year, or with fine, or with both. Penalty for tampering with license, section 47. Anybody who alters or tampers, that is make sure that they are tampering with it, they are spoiling it, they are changing the course of it, any license which is issued or renewed, that time they will have punishment of fine which may extend to 25,000, imprisonment up to 1 year, or with both. Compounding of offences we have under section 48. So compounding of offences is nothing but when you go to the government and say sorry, we made a mistake, and the government agrees not to prosecute you for that offence, not to prosecute the company or the person for that particular offence. That process is called compounding. So compounding is basically you're telling we made a mistake, we have not followed so and so section, now please don't punish us because we came voluntarily and we are agreeing our mistake. So voluntarily we go and agree our mistake and we ask for a pardon, that is compounding. Second time you can't do same mistake and ask compounding. First time you can. And every offence is not compoundable. Offence punishable under section 25, 27 to 39, 45 to 47, that is either before or after the institution of the prosecution, can be compounded. Everything can't be compounded, only some of them can be compounded. Like 40 to 44, 26 cannot be compounded. So you need to make a payment to the government, and the government will agree not to file a case or send notice to you for that offence. The last thing in this chapter is power of the central government to make rules. Please remember that the Legal Metrology Act has no power without the rules which is framed by the central government. The central government can make rules for any of the things under the Legal Metrology Act. They can make the amendments also from time to time for the respective rules. Same way, the state government can also make rules in some matters, and the state government may provide for breach thereof punishable which may extend to 5,000 rupees. So they can also make rules for the efficient functioning of the Legal Metrology Act. So this comes to the end of the Legal Metrology Act, and if you have any doubts, you can always get in touch with us. We will be happy to help you.